The story begins inside a massive training hall of the Krithan Empire, a place built not to teach but to crush spirits, where gravity is heavier than Earth's and the air smells of metal, sweat, and fear, and where young fighters from many alien races are pushed beyond their limits to serve the Emperor. Among them stands a human boy named Eli Mercer, only 17, smaller and weaker than most others there. Already bruised and bleeding, yet still standing in the sandpit with a practice blade shaking in his hand. Because quitting is not something he was raised to do, and across from him looms trainer Varkle, a cruel and powerful alien whose stone-like skin and many arms make him look more like a monster than a teacher. A being known for breaking recruits and enjoying it. And Varkle insults Eli openly, calling humans useless and weak, claiming they only belong fixing machines and cleaning floors, and the watching crowd of alien trainees laughs loudly, feeding on Eli's pain, but instead of lowering his head, Eli remembers his grandfather, an old man who raised him with quiet lessons and strange stories, and Eli speaks up, saying that balance matters more than strength, because that is what his grandfather taught him, which only makes the mockery worse, as Varkle and the others laugh harder at the idea that a human elder could know anything about combat. And when Eli adds that his grandfather once trained soldiers of the Empire itself, even men who served the Emperor long ago, the laughter turns sharp and cruel, because to them the idea is impossible, and Varkle reacts with anger, striking Eli across the face so hard he is thrown into the sand, blood spilling as the trainer calls him a liar and declares that no human ever trained the Emperor's warriors, reinforcing the Empire's belief that humans are tools, not legends. Yet even while hurt and dizzy, Eli struggles to rise and repeats his claim with quiet honesty, saying that it happened before the Empire ruled the stars, before it learned how useful humans could be. And just as Varkle raises his fist to strike again, a single calm voice stops everything, freezing the hall in silence, as an old man steps forward from the shadows, not wearing armor or rank marks, only stained work clothes, his body thin and bent from years of labor, his hands scarred by fire and metal, but his eyes sharp and commanding. And those who recognize him feel fear instead of laughter, because this is Joran Hale, the Emperor's personal mechanic, the man who keeps the Imperial War Corps alive, a figure respected even by generals. And Joran looks first at Eli with something like recognition, then at Varkle with quiet judgment. And he says that he knew Eli's grandfather, confirming the boy's words, explaining that the old human taught him how humans fight when surrounded and how they survive when logic says they should die. And with those words, the entire meaning of the moment changes, because what sounded like a foolish boast is revealed as part of a hidden human history the Empire prefers to forget. And before anyone can speak again, warning alarms suddenly scream through the station, shaking the walls and drowning out all thought. As news spreads that a massive enemy force is arriving, an alien armada threatening the heart of the Empire itself, and fear replaces arrogance in the faces of the trainees and trainers alike, because the war they trained for has arrived without mercy. And as chaos begins and soldiers rush to battle stations, Eli remains on his knees in the sand, not laughing, not proud, but steady, realizing that his grandfather's lessons, once mocked, may now be the only thing standing between the Empire and destruction. And the laughter that filled the hall only moments ago is gone, replaced by silence, fear, and the first spark of respect for a human boy who refused to stay down. The second part of the story unfolds as the threat of war becomes immediate and terrifying, with alarms echoing across the Imperial capital system as a massive Zalrith armada bursts out of warp. A terrifying fleet of living ships that seem grown rather than built, their hulls writhing like organic beasts and their screeches filling space like a chorus of pain. creating instant panic among the Empire's fleets despite their reputation for order and discipline. And the human recruits, including Eli, are thrown into the chaos almost without warning, shoved into a transport ship alongside other trainees, none of whom have ever faced real combat before, their fear palpable as the ship jolts violently through space, dodging explosions and energy blasts while the battle outside is catastrophic, with Imperial cruisers and alien vessels colliding, firing, and falling in flames, creating a chaotic tapestry of destruction where ships are ripped apart in seconds and space itself seems to scream. And Eli, though inexperienced and terrified, is given a rifle and thrust into the front lines by chance or necessity, his heart pounding as the enormity of what is happening washes over him, while behind him moves Joran Hale, the aged mechanic who, despite his bent back and burned hands, is full of purpose, moving from console to console on the transport and giving orders not because he is a soldier, but because he knows strategy, observation, and the strange, almost mystical ways humans fight when they refuse to follow conventional rules. And Joran points at Eli, telling him to stay close, to survive, to learn. And soon the battle becomes more than simple survival, as the Zalrith ships prove terrifyingly adaptable, changing shape and tactics with uncanny speed, rendering standard Imperial weaponry almost useless. While commanders shout orders, panic spreads, and explosions throw everyone against walls, shaking the ship with violence. Yet in the midst of this terror, humans begin to make a difference, guided by Joran and by instincts taught long ago by Eli's grandfather. And Eli suddenly remembers lessons from childhood, how to move unpredictably, how to disrupt patterns, how to think 2 steps ahead in any conflict. And he shouts suggestions to the gunners, telling them to fire in random sequences, to change rhythms constantly so the enemy cannot predict. And though the other soldiers hesitate at first, Joran's roar of authority and encouragement breaks their doubt. And soon the transport and other ships begin employing these chaotic methods, creating openings in the enemy lines, destroying hundreds of Zalrith ships and causing their formations to collapse. And as human ingenuity spreads across the battlefield, Imperial pilots, engineers, and crews begin improvising, hacking their own weapons mid-fight, changing firing patterns, switching engines into overdrive, all in ways no alien would think to try, sacrificing safety for creativity. And though human losses are high, with brave men and women dying, burning, or being sucked into space, the survivors push forward relentlessly, refusing to yield, their courage inspiring the alien soldiers and even some Imperial commanders to respect their determination. While Eli himself leads a boarding team onto a massive Zalrith ship, a living vessel with walls that pulse and bleed acidic fluid, the environment screaming with biological noises that make the air tremble. And as his team fights through alien defenders, one by one they fall, leaving Eli alone, but he presses on, planting charges to destroy the ship, knowing that each act of defiance allows the larger fleet to survive. And when the ship explodes, the shockwave pushes back enemy cruisers, creating a temporary reprieve for the remaining forces. And through all this chaos, it becomes clear that the humans are not the strongest, fastest, or most heavily armed, but they possess something the Empire has underestimated for centuries: ingenuity, adaptability, courage, and the refusal to obey patterns blindly. And as the battle rages across space, human crews coordinate in new ways, with random tactics and bold maneuvers, using knowledge passed down through generations to fight smarter, not merely harder. And the Zalrith begin to falter, their ships exploding under assaults that should have been impossible, while human sacrifice continues to shape the tide of battle. And Eli, standing amidst the fire and debris, realizes that every lesson from his grandfather, every strange story and secret training session, is now being used in real combat, that chaos, unpredictability, and human determination can turn the tide against overwhelming odds. And as the sun of the system glints off broken hulls and fire trails, the survivors, led by humans and guided by Joran, push back the enemy fleet, earning the first true victories in the war. And in this moment, Eli understands that humans are not just tools of the Empire, nor fragile beings to be laughed at, but a force shaped by survival, cleverness, and stubborn will. And that even in the heart of annihilation, they can carve space for themselves, turning despair into triumph, and setting the stage for a final confrontation where their courage and legacy will face the ultimate test. The final part of the story begins with the remnants of the Imperial fleet and the human crews facing the greatest threat of all, the massive Zaureth Overmind ship, a living world of destruction larger than moons, its hull pulsing with strange life, gravity bending around it, and its very presence warping the space around the fleet, causing smaller ships to struggle to maintain formation. And as the Emperor himself orders a retreat, panic spreads through the command ranks because no tactic, no formation, no weapon seems capable of piercing the Overmind's defenses, but the humans, led by Eli and guided by Joran Hale, refuse to flee, knowing that running will only lead to total annihilation. And Eli's damaged cruiser, already scarred from previous battles, moves forward through the wreckage of destroyed ships, dodging energy blasts, magnetic fields, and debris that float like deadly asteroids, while Joran, bleeding and exhausted, leans on consoles, issuing instructions with a mixture of grit, experience, and knowledge that only someone who has lived decades among machines could possess. And the humans begin to act with perfect coordination, improvising continuously, shifting weapons and thrusters mid-flight, choosing unpredictable attack vectors, boarding enemy ships, and using whatever unconventional tactics they can think of, because their training, their lessons from ancestors, and their willingness to sacrifice all for a greater purpose give them a unique edge. And as Eli's mind races, he remembers every story his grandfather told him, every secret lesson in movement, timing, and chaos. And he realizes that the only way to strike the Overmind is by doing exactly what the Zaureth cannot anticipate, moving at impossible angles, striking where they do not expect, and coordinating attacks that seem random but are deadly precise. And he shouts orders to his crew, telling them to disregard normal formation, to sacrifice their safety, to attack in patterns that change every second. And the human ships respond, engines burning at maximum output, weapons firing unpredictably, boarding teams leaping from ship to ship like shadows, creating chaos in the Overmind's defenses, while around them the battlefield becomes a storm of fire and debris, entire fleets exploding in brilliant flashes as humans exploit the smallest weaknesses in the enemy's organic structure. And Eli volunteers to guide the final torpedo himself, knowing that it is a near-suicidal mission, but understanding that precision and human daring are required to reach the heart of the Overmind. And as he moves through the corridors of his ship, dodging alarms, fires, and structural collapses, he feels the weight of generations of human cunning and endurance pressing on him, every lesson from his grandfather echoing in his mind. If you must fall, fall forward. And he pilots the torpedo manually, threading it through a maze of defenses, narrowly avoiding crushing energy fields, acid-like substances, and alien defenders, all while the fleet continues to attack, distracting the Overmind and creating openings. And with a final, precise strike, the torpedo impacts at the core, causing an explosion that radiates like a star being born, shaking the Overmind to its foundations. tearing it apart from the inside and across the battlefield. The remaining Zalrith ships lose coordination, their psychic link to the Overmind broken, causing them to drift and implode as their hive mind collapses. And the screams of living ships fill the void of space as they die, leaving silence in their wake, a silence that feels impossible after hours of battle. And when the dust settles, the humans who survived float among the wreckage, battered, burned, exhausted, but alive, and Eli, injured but determined, awakens days later to see the Emperor himself at his bedside, who speaks in a voice tinged with awe and respect, acknowledging that humanity, small and underestimated, has saved the Empire from total destruction, and asks what they desire in return. And Eli, thinking of his grandfather, Jorn Hale, and every human who fought and died, answers simply, asking for respect and a place to stand within the Empire. And the Emperor bows, signaling a recognition of humanity's worth, a recognition that had been denied for centuries, and over time statues are built, not of emperors or generals, but of humans scarred, tool-wielding, stubborn, and unyielding, honoring their ingenuity, courage, and refusal to break in the face of impossible odds. And the story spreads throughout the galaxy, inspiring humans and allies alike with the truth that even when mocked, laughed at, or thought weak, humanity has a legacy of endurance and cleverness, of rising when all hope seems lost, of turning sacrifice into victory, and that the teen who spoke of his grandfather was not lying, and the mechanic who confirmed it was a witness to a legacy of human cunning and bravery that reshaped a war, proving that humans, small and underestimated, are capable of feats beyond imagination, that their resilience can shift the course of galactic history, and that the laughter of the past becomes awe in the present, leaving a lasting lesson across the stars. Humans may not roar first, but when they act, they endure, adapt, and triumph in ways that no one, not even the greatest aliens of the Empire, can ignore or ever forget.